The world was dying, and Valen had no place in it. She had lived her whole life on the run, surviving by slipping between the cracks of warring kingdoms that devoured everything in their path. To them, she was nothing. A nameless runaway. Another scrap of life caught in the gears of war. She had spent weeks drifting from village to village, dodging soldiers and mercenaries alike, surviving on stolen bread and whatever water she could find. But luck never lasted long in a land where everyone is needed for the war effort. And when they found her, she knew she was out of time. The war patrol caught her just past the ruins of Meyerfield, a village burned to its foundations. They must have been searching for deserters, half-starved men and women too broken to keep. Fighting, Valen had nowhere to run. Mud sucked at her boots as she tried to flee, but strong hands seized her arms. She kicked, fought. But the soldiers were hardened men, their grips like iron. "You think you can run?" one of them sneered. "Everyone fights. No one hides." "She's young," another muttered. "Could be useful." Valen thrashed harder, panic clawing. At her throat, she had seen what happened to those dragged off to the front lines. They didn't return. "Let me go," she snarled. They didn't. Then something inside her snapped. A deep pulse erupted from her chest, a force that threw her captors back as if the air itself had turned solid and shoved them away. Armor cracked. Bones snapped. The men collapsed in. The mud, their bodies twisted and unmoving. Valen stumbled, staring at her hands. No fire, no lightning. Just raw force. It had felt instinctive, like something buried deep inside her had finally surfaced. Her breath came fast. Too fast. She had done that, and the world had felt it. The moment of shock didn't last. Distant voices, more soldiers. The pulse had been loud. Too loud. Valen turned and ran. She tore through the ruined landscape, past shattered houses and corpses left to rot. The sky overhead was a swirl of dying reds and blacks, as if the rift itself watched her escape. Her body ached, her heart pounded, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. She wasn't just a runaway anymore. She was something else, and the world would soon know. Valen ran until her legs gave out. She collapsed near the roots of a fallen tree, its trunk split by old fire, the earth around it long turned to dust. The wind carried the stench of war, thick with the fading scent of burned flesh and rusted steel. Her breath came in short, uneven gasps. Her limbs trembled, her head spun. She had killed them. She hadn't meant to, but the bodies had been there, broken, unmoving, silent. She pressed her forehead to the dirt, trying to steady herself. What was I supposed to do? The question had no answer. But then she heard footsteps. She pushed herself up, her hands finding the cold hilt of a rusted dagger she had stolen days ago. It was useless against soldiers, but she gripped it anyway. Then she saw him. A man stood just beyond the tree line, half hidden in the shadows. He was dressed like a traveler, layered leathers, dust-covered boots, a cloak that had seen better days. A sword rested at his hip, but he hadn't drawn it. Yet. Valen's pulse hammered. Another soldier? A mercenary? A deserter? He watched her, eyes sharp as if he already knew everything about her. "That was quite the escape," he said at last. His voice was calm, steady, but there was something else beneath it. Amusement, curiosity. Valen tightened her grip on the dagger. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head slightly, studying her. "You don't know?" She didn't answer. He let out a quiet breath. "Then you really are new to this." Something in his tone sent a chill through her bones, because he knew, not just about the escape, not just about the soldiers, he knew what she was. Valen didn't lower the dagger. She couldn't. Every part of her screamed to run, but something in the man's stance kept her rooted in place. He wasn't reaching for his sword. He wasn't calling for others. But his eyes, sharp, knowing, made her uneasy. "How do you know?" she asked, voice tight. The man took a slow step closer, hands still open at his sides, a deliberate choice not to be a threat. "Because I've seen this before." Valen's fingers tightened around the hilt. Liar. His lips twitched. Not quite a smile, not quite a smirk. "You think you're the first?" A chill ran through her. "The first? You don't even know what you are yet," he continued, his tone shifting, no longer amused but certain. "But the kingdoms do. The moment that shield pulse hit, half the warlords out here felt it." Her breath caught. They know you exist now, Valen. Just a quick reminder before we get started. Only 4% of my viewers have subscribed to the channel so far. If you enjoy the content, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to hit that subscribe button and support the channel. Thank you so much. Now continue amazing story. Her stomach dropped. He knows my name. She took a step back, but he sighed, shaking his head. That wasn't hard to figure out. How? She demanded. He studied her for a moment, then reached into the folds of his cloak. Valen tensed, ready to bolt, but all he pulled out was a small, leather-bound book. He held it up just enough for her to see the symbol burned into its cover. A sigil, one she didn't recognize. This, he said, tapping it, is what the world calls prophecy. I call it a curse. Either way, you're in it. The book looked old, worn, like it had passed through many hands. I didn't believe it either. At first, he admitted, but you fit the pattern. You're the right age, right place, and the way you broke those soldiers. He exhaled. Only one person does that in every cycle. Valen swallowed hard. The adjudicator, his gaze, met hers. Now you're getting it. Valen's grip on the dagger never wavered. Too many questions. Too many things she didn't understand. She narrowed her eyes. How do you know my name? The man sighed, closing the leather-bound book with a quiet snap. You think you're some nameless runaway, don't you? He shook his head. But the moment you awakened, the rift stirred. And when it stirs, people like me feel it. That's not an answer. A flicker of something, approval, passed through his gaze. Fair enough. He turned the book over in his hands, as if debating something, then tapped the worn cover. Your name is written here. Valen's stomach tightened. That's impossible. I thought so. Too, once. His voice was quieter now, something like understanding in it. But the adjudicator is never just born. They are expected, prepared for. He flipped the book open, running his fingers over a page that looked far older than the rest. Then he turned it toward her. The script was ancient, curling letters inked in something dark and faded. But even in the dim light, she saw it. Her name, Valen, scrawled in the margins beside other names, names she didn't recognize, names of the past. Her breath caught. No. Yes, the man said, closing the book again. You think I'm the only one who knows? There are others. Some want to guide you, some want to kill you. His expression darkened. Some will want to use you. She shook her head, stepping back. I don't want any of this. That doesn't matter. She looked up at him, expecting arrogance, expectation. But there was neither, just certainty. You are the adjudicator, he said. And whether you like it or not, the world is coming for you. Valen swallowed hard, her gaze flicking from the book to the man holding it. He knew too much. She forced herself to keep her voice steady. Who are you? For a moment, he didn't answer, just watched her as if measuring something unseen. Then, finally, he closed the book and tucked it back into his cloak. Call me Kieran. She frowned. Is that your real name? A smirk. Does it matter? It did. But Valen wasn't sure why. Valen's grip on the dagger didn't loosen. She didn't trust him. Why should she? He knew too much, appeared out of nowhere, and carried a book with her name written in it before she even knew what she was. Kieran didn't seem bothered by her silence. Instead, he studied her again, his gaze unreadable. You have no plan, do you? She bristled. I don't need one. A low chuckle. You're standing in the middle of war-torn land, alone, without food, without allies. Tell me, how exactly? Do you plan to survive? She clenched her teeth, refusing to admit he was right. Kieran let the silence stretch before speaking again, this time softer. You can run, Valen. You can pretend this isn't happening, but sooner or later someone else will find you, and they won't be as patient as me. Her stomach twisted. So what? You want me to go with you? I want you to live. His tone was firm, no amusement now. You don't know what's coming, but I do. I can help you, if you let me. Valen hesitated. She didn't trust him, not yet, but he wasn't wrong. Alone she wouldn't last long. She took a slow breath. And if I say no? Kieran's smirk returned. Then I'll be seeing you again. probably under less pleasant circumstances. He stepped back, giving her space. The choice is yours, adjudicator. She hated the way that title sent a shiver through her. Vaylin looked past him, toward the darkened horizon. There was no going back, and she wasn't naive enough to think she could survive on her own forever. Finally, she exhaled. Fine. She sheathed her dagger. But if you try anything... You'll kill me? Kieran raised an eyebrow. I'd expect nothing less. He turned, motioning for her to follow, and against every instinct screaming at her, she did. Vaylin followed Kieran, her mind racing. His words echoed in her head. I've seen others. None of them made it. She quickened her pace, stepping in line beside him. There can only be one adjudicator at a time. Kieran didn't look at her, but she caught the subtle tightening of his jaw. I know. Then what do you mean you've seen others? A pause. Then, with a voice quieter than before, he said, The ones who came before you. Vaylin's breath hitched. She had never thought about it before. The past lives, the ones who had carried this burden before her. She had been running from the truth, but deep down she had always known. The adjudicator wasn't just a myth. It wasn't just a story. It was a cycle. And if she was here, if she had been reborn... The last one, she whispered. What happened to them? Kieran stopped walking. The wind howled through the dead trees around them, carrying the distant scent of war, of ash and ruin. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, without turning to face her, he muttered, They died, Vaylin, just like all the others. A cold knot formed in her stomach. Kieran finally turned, his expression unreadable. That's why you need to stop running. Because if you don't figure out what you are, if you don't become strong enough to survive... He stepped closer, lowering his voice. They're going to kill you too. Vaylin swallowed hard, forcing herself to hold Kieran's gaze. They're going to kill you too. The words sat heavy in the cold night air, a truth she had been trying to outrun since the moment she escaped. She had always thought if she just kept moving, if she stayed unnoticed, she could survive. But that was a lie, wasn't it? The moment that shield pulse erupted from her, the world had changed. She couldn't run from what she was anymore. Her fingers curled into fists. Who are they? Kieran studied her, as if weighing how much to say. Then quietly he answered, Warriors, kings, fanatics. Every kingdom has its own reasons to fear the adjudicator. Some want your power. Others want to make sure you never live long enough to use it. He let that settle before adding, And one of them is already tracking you. Vaylin's stomach twisted. You said I had a choice, she murmured. You do, Kieran said, tilting his head. You can still run. You can still pretend none of this is real. He took a step back, giving her space. Or you can come with me. Learn what you are. Learn how to survive. The night stretched around them, empty and waiting. Vaylin's heart pounded in her chest. She looked past him, toward the ruined world, toward the endless war she had been trying to escape. There was no hiding from this. Not anymore. Finally, she exhaled. Where do we start? Kieran's smirk returned, but this time there was something different behind it. Approval. Good choice. And with that, the two of them disappeared into the night, the world already shifting in their wake. The night stretched on as Vaylin and Kieran moved through the war-torn land. The sky above was a deep, endless black, the kind of darkness that swallowed sound, leaving only the distant echoes of war and the whisper of the wind through broken trees. Vaylin's body ached from exhaustion, but she didn't ask for rest. She wouldn't. Kieran led the way, never slowing, never hesitating. He moved like someone who had long since accepted the weight of the world pressing down on him. When they finally stopped, it was near the remains of a ruined watchtower, its foundation cracked, its top long since crumbled. Kieran crouched near the base, motioning for her to sit. We'll stay here until first light, he said simply. Vaylin hesitated. What if someone's watching? Kieran exhaled, leaning against the cold stone. They are. Her fingers twitched toward the dagger at her hip. And you're just... What? Comfortable with that? A small smirk. If they wanted you dead, they wouldn't be watching. They'd be acting. That didn't make her feel any better. She sat stiffly, against the rock, pulling her cloak tighter around her. Kieran rummaged through his pack, pulling out a small strip of dried meat and tossing it to her. She caught it without thinking, then scowled at him. "You think it's poisoned?" he asked, amused. "I think I don't trust you." Kieran chuckled, biting off a piece of his own rations. "Good. You shouldn't." Silence settled between them. The night stretched on, the wind carrying the scent of ash and blood, of distant fires burning beyond sight. Valen's mind raced. She had killed those soldiers, not with a weapon, not with skill, with something else, something inside her. She swallowed. "How did you find me?" Kieran leaned his head back against the rock, closing his eyes briefly before answering. "You made it easy." Valen frowned. "I was careful." Kieran scoffed. "Careful people don't send out pulses strong enough to wake the rift." A chill ran down her spine. "What? You think no one felt that?" Kieran finally looked at her. "I wasn't the only one who noticed. You sent out a flare, Valen. A beacon." He tilted his head slightly. "And now, everyone who matters knows you exist." Her stomach twisted. "Who is everyone?" Kieran sighed, reaching into his cloak. He pulled out a small, rolled piece of parchment and tossed it toward her. Valen unrolled it with stiff fingers. There was no drawing, no description, just a few words written in bold, deliberate strokes. Wanted, the false adjudicator. Deliver to Warlord Garrick. Alive. She stared at it, her heart hammering against. Her ribs. "False?" she murmured. Kieran nodded. "That's how Garrick works. He doesn't just hunt you. He makes the world doubt you." Valen clenched the parchment. "How did he get this out so fast?" Kieran's voice was quiet. "Because he didn't make it today." The world around her tilted. Kieran leaned forward, his voice steady. "That bounty was written before you even awakened. Garrick didn't react to you, Valen. He was waiting for you." Valen's fingers tightened around the parchment. "Why?" Kieran held her gaze. "Because he knows what you are. And unlike the rest of the world, he doesn't believe in prophecy." Valen swallowed hard. "Then what does he believe in?" Kieran's eyes darkened. "Power." The night stretched around them, thick with unspoken truths. Valen looked down at the parchment again. Her death warrant, written before she had even become herself. Her hands stopped shaking. She looked up, meeting Kieran's eyes with something colder, harder. "Then we need to move," she said. Kieran smirked. "Now you're thinking like someone who wants to live." They rose to their feet, and without another word, disappeared into the darkness. The wind howled through the broken trees as Valen and Kieran moved deeper into the wilderness. The war-torn land stretched endlessly before them. Scarred fields, burned-out villages, and ruins swallowed by time. Neither of them spoke. Valen's mind was still reeling. The bounty, the fact that Garrick had been waiting for her, the certainty that she wasn't just being hunted, she was being played. Finally, she exhaled. "Where are we going?" Kieran didn't slow his stride. "Somewhere safer than this." Valen narrowed her eyes. "That's not an answer." Kieran let out a quiet chuckle but didn't argue. "There's a place ahead, a way station hidden in the hills. It used to be a trading post before the war. Now it's a haven for those who don't want to be found." Valen's steps slowed slightly. "And you trust them?" "I trust them to care more about staying hidden than selling you out," Kieran said, "which is better than nothing." She wasn't sure that comforted her. By the time they reached the settlement, the sky was starting to lighten, streaks of deep blue cutting through the night. The way station was hidden within a rocky valley, its entrance half concealed by collapsed stone. Once it must have been a proper outpost, but now it looked more like a forgotten ruin. Cracked buildings, makeshift wooden barricades, and a few scattered fires barely visible beyond the walls. Kieran led her toward the entrance where two armed figures stood watch. One of them, a woman in patchwork armor, eyed them warily. "Didn't expect you back so soon. Didn't plan on it," Kieran replied, his tone easy. "We need a place to rest." The second guard, an older man with a scarred jaw, glanced at Valen. "Who's she?" Kieran didn't hesitate. "A runaway, just like the rest of them." Valen forced herself to stay still. She wasn't sure if Kieran's lie was for their safety or hers, but she wasn't about to correct him. The two guards exchanged a look. Then the woman shrugged. "Fine. Don't start trouble." They stepped aside, letting them pass. Inside, the way station was more alive than Valen expected. There were people everywhere. Deserters, smugglers, war refugees, all gathered in small clusters near the ruined buildings. Some sat around dwindling fires, others bartered for supplies, exchanging whatever scraps they had left. It wasn't safety exactly, but it was something close. Valen exhaled. For the first time in days, she wasn't running. Valen felt the air grow thicker as night fell. The way station, once a place of fleeting refuge, was now fraught with tension. Kieran had taken to pacing the main hall, his eyes constantly darting toward the windows, his posture rigid with the sense that they weren't alone, even though there were no visible threats. Valen sat at the small wooden table, her fingers tracing the edge of a map she had stolen from the local archives. She had barely glanced at it before, but something was gnawing at her now, something she couldn't put into words. The door creaked open, drawing her attention. An older man entered, his features lined with age but sharp with intelligence. His robes were simple, but his presence had an undeniable authority. He looked around the room, his eyes pausing briefly on her. "I have come for the one they call Valen," he said, his voice steady and sure. Kieran's hand immediately went to his dagger, but the scholar's gaze held him in place. There was something about the way he stood, the way his eyes seemed to pierce through her, the way he said her name. Not with uncertainty or suspicion, but with knowledge. "I know you are the adjudicator," he continued, his words heavy, yet not accusing. "And I know what you are meant to face." Valen felt the pulse of unease rush through her veins, but she didn't let it show. Her gaze flicked to Kieran, who was still sizing the man up. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. "And how do you know about the adjudicator?" The scholar's lips curled slightly into a knowing smile. "I am Kaelin, a keeper of the ancient records, one of the few who still remembers the truth of the adjudicators." Valen frowned, her mind spinning with questions. The name felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Records? Of the adjudicators?" she asked slowly, trying to gauge his intentions. "You mean the ones who have come before me?" Kaelin nodded. "Indeed. And I fear, child, that you know very little of the legacy you now bear." He stepped forward, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her uneasy. "I can help you understand what is happening to you." Kieran stepped forward, his voice low. "You're speaking of the rift, aren't you?" Kaelin looked at him, a soft chuckle escaping his lips. "The rift is but a symptom of something much older, something far more dangerous." "Then what is it?" Valen asked, the urgency in her tone betraying her calm exterior. The scholar hesitated, as if weighing the gravity of his words. "The adjudicators were not chosen to heal the world, Valen. You were born to end it." Valen recoiled, her breath catching in her chest. "What do you mean?" "The adjudicators were once seen as the world's saviors," Kaelin said, pacing slowly as he spoke. "But each of them, when their time came, destroyed everything they sought to protect. They were bound to the rift, drawn into a cycle of inevitable destruction." "That can't be true." Valen shook her head, disbelief clouding her thoughts. "You're lying." "I wish I were," Kaelin said, his voice dropping. "The truth of the adjudicators is buried in the darkest of histories. You will never escape the rift, Valen. It will always be part of you." His words hung in the air like an ominous weight, and for the first time since learning of her rebirth, Valen felt a sense of overwhelming dread. She had always thought her purpose was to heal, to restore balance. But if Kaelin spoke the truth, a silent tension filled the room. Valen felt the cold chill of fear coil around her heart. She wanted to deny everything he said, but the burning, oppressive pull of the rift, she had felt it herself. "Why are you telling me this?" Kieran's voice broke through the silence. "What do you want from her?" Kaelin turned to him, his eyes sharp. "I seek nothing from her, but I do seek to warn her." "I don't need your warnings," Valen said, her voice shaking slightly but resolute. "I'll find my own way. If what you say is true, I will fight it." Kaelin's gaze softened, a rare flicker of empathy crossing his features. "Then you are truly the adjudicator. But remember, Valen, there is only one path for someone like you. And no matter what you choose, the world will suffer. With that, Kaylin turned and left, the way station disappearing into the night as mysteriously as he had arrived. Valen stood motionless, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. Kieran watched her closely, his brow furrowed with concern. "Do you believe him?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Valen didn't answer right away. She didn't know if she believed Kaylin's warning or not, but something deep within her stirred. Something she couldn't explain? "I don't know," she finally said, her voice distant. "But I need to find out." Valen sat in silence long after Kaylin had left, staring at the flickering torchlight on the stone walls. The adjudicators were not chosen to heal the world. You were born to end it. She clenched her fists. No, that couldn't be right. Kieran watched her from the other side of the room, arms crossed. "You're thinking too hard." Valen shot him a glare. "I should just ignore the part where I might be doomed to destroy everything?" Kieran shrugged. "What's thinking about it going to change?" His words irritated her, but she bit back her response. He wasn't wrong. If the cycle had repeated for centuries, then she was no different. But that didn't mean she had to accept it. "I'll find another way," she murmured. Kieran raised an eyebrow. "Another way to do what?" "To break it." Valen looked at him, determination hardening her features. "If every adjudicator before me failed, then I'll be the first one who doesn't." Kieran exhaled through his nose, something between amusement and skepticism flashing across his face. "That's ambitious. It's necessary." She shot back. "I don't care what Kaylin thinks he knows. If I was given this power, I should have the choice to use it differently." Kieran studied her, his expression unreadable. Then, after a long pause, he said, "And what if you can't?" Valen didn't answer. She couldn't, because she didn't know. The weight of Kaylin's words lingered in her mind long after they left the way station behind. She would not be like the others. She would break the cycle. But fate had other plans, because no matter how hard she fought, how much she tried to change the course set before her, the truth would always find her. The fire burned low in the ruined temple where they had taken shelter for the night. The stone walls were scarred by time and war, the ceiling cracked enough to let in slivers of moonlight. Valen sat near the flames, her hands clasped tightly together. She had spent the past few days trying to force the power to return. That raw surge she had felt when she had knocked out the soldiers. But no matter how much she focused, nothing happened. She was beginning to wonder if it had been a fluke. Kieran sat a few feet away, sharpening his knife, the rhythmic scrape of metal against whetstone the only sound between them. He hadn't said much since they left the way station, but he was watching. He always was. Valen exhaled sharply, frustrated. "It's like it was never there." Kieran didn't look up. "Maybe you're trying too hard," she scowled. "That's not helpful." He smirked slightly, flipping the knife in his palm. "Neither is sitting there sulking." Valen clenched her jaw and turned away. He didn't get it. He wasn't the one carrying this weight. The rift, the prophecy, the cycle, none of it belonged to him. It belonged to her, and right now, she felt powerless. Sleep came reluctantly that night. Valen curled up near the fire, but her body refused to relax. Her mind kept racing, caught between exhaustion and something she couldn't name. And then, the dream came. She was standing in a field of blackened earth, the sky above her swirling with unnatural colors, shades of violet and deep, shifting, crimson. The rift loomed overhead, a wound in reality, pulsing like a dying star. Figures moved in the distance. No, not moved. Writhed. Twisted shadows. Shifting forms. She couldn't see their faces. But she knew them. They were the ones who came before her. The past adjudicators, and they were screaming. A voice slithered through the air, a whisper that wasn't a whisper at all. "You cannot escape it." Valen turned, trying to run, to move, to fight, but the world itself broke apart beneath her. The rift wasn't just ahead of her, it was inside her. And then, with a blinding surge of pain, she woke up, and everything exploded. A shockwave of raw, untamed force erupted from her body, sending Kieran flying back into the stone wall with a vicious crack. The fire snuffed out instantly, and the ground beneath them shuddered as if the entire temple was about to collapse. Valen gasped, clutching at her chest, her skin burning from the inside out. She couldn't breathe. She saw Kieran move from the corner of her vision, staggering to his feet. His expression was unreadable, but his blade was in his hand. "Valen," he said carefully, voice edged with warning. She looked down at herself. The air around her was shimmering, distorted like heat rising off a forge. Her veins felt like they had turned to molten fire, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had felt this before, but this time, it wasn't stopping. The power wasn't fading, it was growing. The aftershock of Valen's outburst left the ruined. Temple shuddering, dust cascading from the cracked ceiling. Kieran pushed himself up from where he'd been thrown, his dagger still in his grip, his gaze flicking between Valen and the trembling earth. "Tell me you meant to do that," he muttered, spitting out a mouthful of dust. Valen barely heard him. Her body still burned from the inside out. Her vision blurred, the raw force swirling around her, refusing to die down. The ground beneath her feet pulsed, cracks spiderwebbing outward like something beneath the surface was trying to break free. And then a horn split the night air. Kieran cursed under his breath. Damn it! That was close enough to be a patrol! Valen forced herself to steady her breathing, pushing down the roiling magic within her. Valen barely had time to catch her breath before the forest came alive with movement. Boots on stone. Armor shifting. Voices cutting through the night. Kieran reacted first, grabbing her wrist and pulling her back into the shadows. "Too late to run now," he murmured. "Stay close." A moment later, they stepped into view. 6 men, all in dark iron armor, their tabards marked with the insignia of Varadros' royal guard. Patrolmen. Hunters. Their leader, a broad-shouldered captain with a worn steel helm, raised his hand to halt the others. His gaze locked onto the ruined temple, then to the scorched stone where Valen's power had erupted. He exhaled sharply. "Check for survivors." One of the men turned over. A body. His face hardened. "These aren't bandits." The captain took a step forward, finally noticing Valen and Kieran. His expression sharpened. "You? Did you see what happened here?" Kieran didn't move. Valen's pulse pounded. The rift's power had left her veins, but its presence still clung to her skin like an ember refusing to die. The captain studied. "Them!" "Too long." His hand drifted toward the sword at his hip. "Take them," he ordered. The soldiers moved as one. Kieran struck first. The dagger in his palm was a blur, flashing as he sidestepped the nearest guard and drove the blade between. The weak points of his armor, steel met flesh. Blood sprayed onto the temple floor. Before the body even hit the ground, another soldier lunged. Valen barely had time to react before a gauntleted fist swung for her ribs. She twisted away, her instincts screaming. But she wasn't fast enough. The impact stole the air from her lungs. She staggered back, her shoulder slamming into the stone wall. A second soldier raised his sword, coming straight for her. Valen's body acted before she could think. Pain ignited through her arm. Her veins lit up with burning silver, the glow, spreading like jagged lightning beneath her skin. Her fingers twisted, nails darkening, sharpening into something inhuman. The soldier hesitated. Too late. Valen thrust her hand forward, her palm slammed against the soldier's breastplate, and the metal didn't just dent, it shattered. A gaping rupture tore through the steel, bones cracking beneath the impact. The soldier's body arched violently backward, flung through the air before crashing into the far wall. He slumped, unmoving. Valen stared at her own hand. The silver glow still pulsed. Her skin still felt stretched. Wrong. Raw. What had she done? The remaining soldiers had seen. One of them, wide-eyed, took a step back. "What in the—" Kieran moved like a shadow, slipping behind him and dragging his blade across the soldier's throat. The last two hesitated. Valen felt the rift still thrumming beneath her skin. The fire not yet fully gone. One of the guards made the mistake of charging her. She met him mid-strike, her hand colliding with his sword arm, and the flesh beneath his armor split open as if torn from the inside. He collapsed, screaming. The final soldier turned to run. Kieran threw a dagger. It lodged between his shoulder blades. The temple fell quiet. 6 bodies, none of them moving. Valen's breath was ragged. The silver glow in her veins dimmed, then disappeared. She felt empty. Like something had taken hold of her and then abandoned her just as quickly. Kieran wiped his blade clean on a dead man's cloak. He was watching her. Kieran exhaled sharply. "We need to go." Valen barely nodded. She didn't have the strength to argue. The bodies lay still. Some slumped against the temple walls, others sprawled across the cracked stone. The fight had been brief, but loud. Valen could still hear the echo of her own power, the way it had ripped through her veins, twisted her flesh, shattered the soldier's armor like brittle stone. Her right hand trembled as the rift's glow flickered, veins dimming back to normal. Her fingers still felt wrong. Kieran wiped his blade clean and stood. He was watching her. Together, they fled. They ran through the ruins and into the night, slipping between the shattered remains of old stone roads. The ancient city had long since fallen, reduced to nothing but a crumbling husk. Valen's breath came fast, her heart pounding against her ribs. The ground beneath her still felt wrong, like the rift's power hadn't entirely faded. Kieran kept pace beside her, moving fast but steady. He hadn't spoken since they fled. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the tree line. "We keep going," Kieran said. "We need distance." Valen nodded. She couldn't stop now. Not until they were sure they weren't being followed. They didn't stop until the ruins were far behind them and the forest swallowed them whole. Only then did Valen press her back against a tree, forcing herself to breathe. Her arms ached, her head throbbed, and her hands, she looked at them. They were normal again. But she had felt it, the way her bones had shifted, the way the magic had clawed its way out of her. Kieran stood a few feet away, arms crossed, studying. Her like a puzzle he didn't quite understand, she met his gaze. "You saw it," he nodded. "I saw it." Silence. Valen's stomach twisted. She didn't know what she expected. Fear? Disgust? For him to leave her? "You're staying?" Valen asked. Kieran glanced at her, then at the darkened road ahead. "I don't know what you are," he admitted, "but you're not safe alone." Then he smirked. "Besides, someone's gotta keep you alive." Valen let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. As they continued moving, Valen tried to ignore the way her skin still tingled, the way her heartbeat still felt out of sync. Her magic had come alive when she needed it most. But now she wasn't sure how to stop it, and worse, what if she couldn't? Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.